It's Thursday, so you know what that means. Keys to victory. Why and what LSU is going to have to do, or what they're going to do, in my humble opinion, to beat Ole Miss on Saturday. Look, some of these are simple. And I think John Eads of WAFB asked the question that I really I truly wanted to hear BK and the way he reacted to it. John Eads asked the question. So it's my number one key to victory. The number one thing that LSU, I think, needs to do to win this football game. Guys, you got to bring the heat on Jackson Dart, and you got to blitz him. You 100% have to get after him. We have seen over and over and over again, number one is offensive line, not be able to protect him enough, and they like to get the ball out pretty quickly, and they're still giving up a lot of sacks. They're tied for 76 in the country in sacks allowed. They're one of the top teams in the country in pressure or giving up pressures. They're giving up so many pressures per half. By the way, it's over 2, pressures per half on Jackson Dart. And by the way, I don't think that they have played somebody that can be more complementary from offense, defense, and special teams like LSU. So, with that being said, I'm not saying this defense isn't going to give up points at all. I know what I said in the opening, that we're not losing the game and all that stuff. I get it. However, I just wanted to be fully known. I think they're going to get in the end zone at least 3 times, maybe even 4. Maybe even 4. But if you only allow them to 21 points, that means that you're probably going to get stops, which then it's probably going to be sacks that are generated. Savion Jones, Braden Swinson. What do you do with Major Burns? What do you do with Whit Weeks? What do you do with all these guys on crucial third downs? They have not been good on third down. That is the key thing from them the last 2 weeks. There is one glaring weakness. And it's not close. There is one chink in that Ole Miss armor that everybody seems to think is, that you can't get to them. No, that it's just not true. Guys, again, Ole Miss is 17% the last 2 weeks in converting third downs. They've not been able to move the ball running it on some of them because they want to go for it on fourth. There have been many issues that they've had the last 2 weeks. There's not another one that Ole Miss has other than getting off the field on third down. Or staying on the field on third down, excuse me. There isn't one. Another very big reason why Ole Miss has struggled on third down so much. Yes, is it some that they can't get a established running game going? Yes, it is. The second thing behind that, though, is that Jackson Dart has been getting hit a lot. Go watch the first half of South Carolina, and you'll know exactly what I mean. Now, they got to him a lot. They got a sack, but they did not throw the football like that in the whole second half. So they were getting to him. Eventually, you're going to get home. You got to get 2 sacks at minimum. At minimum. And when he scrambles, because when he scrambles, you got to keep a spy or contain or whatever on him because he will break your back scrambling the football. That has been the best thing for me that I love from Jackson Dart. If he were my quarterback, the thing that I would love about him most. Yes, does he do some accurate things throwing the football? Yes. Has he been very consistent in some things underlaying? Yes. The biggest thing that I love and the things that he does is easily what he does on third down when he's got to escape the pocket and pick up yardage and pick up first downs. That's what he does, man. In prime games, well, you should know. He leaped over one of your guys on 3rd and 15 last year. So get after him. I'm telling you, you get to him once and you get him clean, he's going to be rattled. Then you have the pantheon of concrete and steel shaking. I heard what was it? Peyton Manning one time, or no, not Peyton Manning one time. Tim Tebow one time. Excuse me. I heard two completely different quarterbacks. I have no idea why I said Peyton Manning, but I heard Tim Tebow say, and I think this was like a clippable thing that LSU had used a lot and that they had published. It's like Tebow said in 2007, like his helmet was shaking, like on third downs, like it was so loud, like he could feel the vibrations, like that 80s song. Guys, you got to get to him. You got to get to him. Number 2, I think you got to take a scenario or a philosophy from Lane Kiffin. I think early you need to get the ball out quickly, very quickly. I think just generating first downs. Let me tell you why. One thing that defensive linemen do not like is when they're trying to rush the passer and the ball's just out every second and a half. Talk to anybody. Like, I remember the conversation that we had with Warren Sapp on this show, and I asked him, like, well, you know, in the conversation, he was talking about when Ed Orgeron used to get on him so much because he would take plays off on first down if it was a pass rush because he wasn't ready for it. And he'd be like, man, I get tired. Like, you have a Hall of Famer coming in here so many episodes ago talking about that. I think you need to take that playbook out, or part of Lane's playbook and philosophy, into you. Hit the quick pass. Get the ball out in space to Caden Durham. Make them come up and make tackles. Make them come up and make plays. You know, last week, I know what you did. I would not be shocked in the slightest if one of the first plays from the game or line of scrimmage is Joe Sloan faking that swing pass and you attempting to go deep. Remember, your boy said this. I feel like LSU, I have no sourcing on this whatsoever. Zero sourcing on this at all. At some point in the game, either early or on a critical third down, they're going to run that swing pass to Caden Durham, and they're going to hit him. They're going to hit somebody in the pocket, in the little zone pockets that where Nuss wants to throw the football, because it's going to be more four verts. But if it's zone, they're going to sit the pocket. If it's man, they're going to go up the field on a vert. I'm telling you, they're going to hit them on that. With that being said, get those passes out there. Get them out there. I think that you can get on the secondary. Let me explain. Ole Miss is 58th in the country, which we're going to come back to in great depth on one player for number 5. But if there is another area that I think that you can get on them, I think you're going to be able to throw the ball around a little bit with Nuss. And, Blake Nuss has been throwing the ball on anybody. This is a different scenario. Man, like, just to give you a little idea, South Carolina's secondary is honestly, in my humble opinion, as a unit, they might be collectively better than what Ole Miss's is. Because Ole Miss, the best offense that Ole Miss's defenses saw, it's been Wake Forest, maybe, and Wake Forest is not a good football team. With that being said, I think you can get on them. They're 58th in the country in passing yards allowed. And, guys, they play Kentucky, who does not want to throw the football, and they have played South Carolina and Lenora Sellers. They don't want to throw the football. It's not a part of their massive game plan. I think you need to let them come up and show you that they can make tackles. I'm a little skeptical of their safety play. Let's test it. Test it early. Let them come up and make plays. Number 3, Brian Kelly alluded to this today. Okay, so these notes, obviously, as you can see, my notes, Brian Kelly here, keys to victory here. I can put it up closer if you'd like. The third thing that I had thought about all week on what LSU's got to do to win this game versus Ole Miss, you gotta confuse them on some coverages. Jackson Dart has been known, Bama, Georgia, Kentucky, etc. Even last week, Lane even admitted it. That go listen to Lane's postgame. He even admitted, like, hey man, they were showing us stuff in the secondary. One thing, at one moment, the ball snap, post snap, they're in something completely different. They're showing man at the last second, they're bailing. Brian Kelly alluded to that today when in his press conference. He said, listen, we're going to have to show them stuff, and then we're going to have to bail on it and know where we need to be. I think he gave you a little bit of a game plan. I don't know if he's playing chess or checkers, but I absolutely agree with him. You need to show him one thing, give him another. That also comes in the formation of where you're sending pressure and where you're bailing out in coverage. I'm very interested to see what Blake Baker has dialed up and things that they've worked on that they have not put on film this week, where they feel like that they can get to Ole Miss. That's actually going to be number 4. But regardless, I think that they have been trying to do some things in the secondary, show one thing, being another. Now, that's high risk, high reward. I don't know how much they're going to do it with the secondary. I do think that they're going to 1,000% do it on who they're bailing at the line of scrimmage, meaning like when Weeks is showing that he's blitzing, does Weeks now back out? Does Weeks, in that prowler look that they love to be in, does Weeks want to bail out? Does he blitz? What do they do? What do they show Jackson Dart early, and things that maybe that they have not shown on film? One thing that is interesting, okay, that I think that Lane Kiffin is going to have to figure out himself too. LSU was extremely vanilla against South Alabama and what they were doing. Now, would they send some pressures? Yes. Nothing that they hadn't sent already this season and shown on film. What I think is interesting, and if I am an Ole Miss guy, like if I were talking to Ole Miss fans all week, I would say, listen, what do they look like without Harold Perkins? There have been some that said Harold Perkins was a non-factor this year and they didn't really do much. I don't agree with you on that. I actually believe that he's done some really good things, clearly. But what do they look like in different things that LSU wants to do post Harold Perkins injury? I'm telling you, nothing was special behind what they did in an alignment standpoint against South Alabama. Guys, they were in a 4-2-5, or what you would consider a 4-2-5. Now what do? Now who do they bring in? Is there a player that has emerged this week and say, hey, man, this guy really has shown us some stuff on, scout team, or he showed us stuff on second team reps. He might actually be built to do this for us and help us on just one play all week. Like, hey, we're going prowler, we're going this call, and then a new personnel grouping comes in. I think that might happen. So, show them one thing early in the front seven. Give them different looks. I think that they're going to work up with something. Number 4, there's a tie. Like, I don't want you to get lost in coverage, okay? Like, I think that one thing in playing off of this switching, okay? Like, if you're going to show them one thing pre-snap and give them something different post-snap, you cannot be missing your assignment. Because the high risk, high reward, again, Brian Kelly alluded to it twice today. Like, it's when he comes out and says something, it's not bullshit. Like, it's not something that you're like, oh, that's just coach speak. No, when he tells you, like, hey, man, we've been working on this week. Guys, he's been highly consistent in what he's saying. Man, you just can't get lost. You got to know your assignments. Guys, I really feel like that. I know Like, I'll give an example. I know that the potential's in there, and I'll explain. Do you remember against Bama in 22? And the tight end for Bama had a long catch, but Sage Ryan was in the right place where he needed to be, and he got a strip. Now, you wind up not getting the ball, but remember the fumble? Remember Jay Ward being in multiple spots, Mekhi Garner being in multiple spots on third down, making tackles in front of the sticks so that Bama's got to make a tough decision. Do they go? Do they punt? Do they kick a field goal this far out? What do we do? You were showing them a lot of things pre-snap, and you gave them a lot of stuff post-snap. Like Mekhi Garner's tackle, if you remember, right before the sticks, they were showing zone coverage. He was playing man-to-man. He had his hips turned, all of it. I mean, like, this man wasn't in man-on-man at all. It's going to be interesting. Don't get lost in coverage. I listen. Golly, man. I feel like there's some of you, because some of you have told me coming out here and saying this, you're like, Blake, brother, you got to stop. They're not going to get right. They're just not going to get right. Like, we've seen too much. If there's a final hope, for it, for me, it's on this one. It literally is this game. Like, if you can't get it now, you have a bye, then you're going into Ole Miss. Then you just can't do it, man. And look, are there going to be times that Lane does something that confuses you? I'm not saying that you have to be perfect. Lane is a genius at doing that. But, man, you got to be about 95% accuracy on your assignments on what you need to do. Now, you need to be more like 99, and coaches would say 100%, but that's just not logical, and everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. You look at number 8, you look at number 3, you look at number 2, and you look at number 10. Guys, the safety play, the safeties, I mean, if there's a massive far cry, like a big, massive far cry of what you got to accomplish, like, hey, man, you got to go out on your sword on this one. Do you know what you need to do or not? We'll see, man. We'll see. But I do feel what a lot of you are saying, like, Blake, give it up. Maybe I should. Number 5. Garrett Nussmeier. Oh, where in the hell is this crazy ass going with this one? If Nuss plays turnover-free football, even if he has an interception, he's got to be big. I mean, like, he's got to be that dude. Now, I'm going to tell you this. Remember last Thursday, a week ago today, I came out here and said that, man, you know what's interesting? I'm hearing some things around the program that some of the guys have been a little bit more locked in than usual. And that was interesting about a bye week. The reason it was interesting about a bye week is that I've never heard this staff really tell me something like that outside of one time. It's 2 years ago. I always like making phone calls during the bye week. I don't just always something that I've done. Knowing people up there, talking to people that are constantly up there. What's it been like? Guys, I think that Garrett, for what it's worth, non-practice hours, not just him going through film, him, coaching staff, everybody going through what they need to go through, when they need to go through it, and extra. I hope, and this would be as a starter, now that you have all of your coaches, Kelly, Sloan, and Hankton, that are all going to be in a room together for the first time one-on-one, with your starting quarterback outside of maybe there not being other quarterbacks in that room. Let's not act like that this doesn't happen with just starters in general, like the league guy in general, meaning you're a real starter. Garrett has put in some work these last 2 weeks, and good on him. Glad that is happening. Is this a game where I don't want to say that we haven't seen him take a next step? For me, personally, for all of you that watch this show religiously, I think he's got to take that next step. This is where the really good players at LSU that you remember become this guy behind me. Sorry to everybody on the audio, but I'm pointing to a picture of Joe Burrow. That's where you start becoming legends. I don't know if he is or not, but you go into Tiger Stadium at night, Death Valley. You don't need to be him, but you have the opportunity. I alluded to this earlier. I think that Ole Miss's secondary can be had. I think they really can. Because, again, they have not seen a team. Think about this. What if I told you this? What if I told you that there was a team out there that is middle of the country in a ranking? Like, what do I mean? If I told you that there was a team that was 58th in the country, around half, little bit better, but maybe just a little bit above average in one statistical category, in one key area. But even though they're about middle of the pack, that they have not played anybody that's good enough to really test it. But I tell you that, hey, man, the second leading passer in the SEC or the conference that you play in, a guy that does have 14 touchdowns, a guy that does have a lot of passing yards, and a guy that can really sling it. Does he make bad decisions? Sure. Take that out for a minute. Well, you've been bad against teams that can't throw the football as effectively as LSU can. Here's where this makes me a little nervous. Where it makes me a little nervous, okay, is that, number one, you do have some receivers that are hurt. I don't know. Kyle Parker is out. CJ Daniels. If you ask me to put money on it, I say CJ Daniels does not play. Chris Hilton, I'm throwing Chris Hilton out because Chris hasn't played all year, and at some point, we're halfway through the year. When he comes back, he comes back. There just comes a time where you got to, like, not even on the guys that Nuss has been working with in this rotation. So you have two out. The two that have been the best for you, and Aaron Anderson and Kyron Lacey, they got to be better, and somebody's got to step up and be that third guy. Now, do you lean on Mason Taylor more? Because he can be that viable option. You still have the weaponry, better weaponry than the teams that Ole Miss just played. Guys, you have the better receiver core than Kentucky. Guys, you had the better receiving core than South Carolina. Believe me, you do. And you know that too. They have a better receiving core than Wake Forest and Dookie State and Furman, who they played in week 1. I went and watched the Furman game today, and I'm like, this is a joke. This is a joke. Pete Golding's going to send heat after Nuss. He's going to start with his front four and see if he can get home. You have a really good unit protecting Nussmeier. You do. And I think that is where I see the optimism. You know, this week I've monitored it. I've monitored the situation at hand. I know a lot of you have been feeling like, hey, man, I just don't know if we can win this one. All right. Fair. But There's a chink in this Ole Miss armor. It's their secondary. Can you exploit it? Can you limit? Can you make sure that you're not making mistakes? If you have issues throwing the football in this game, I'm really going to question some things. I'm really like, is it play calling, scheme? Like, what is going on? Kyron Lacey, if you're him, if you're going to be that guy, tomorrow, Saturday's the day. It's the day. Are you him? Are you going to live in that pantheon of LSU wide receivers? Now, I don't know if you do. I don't know if you have a Justin Jefferson or Malik Neighbors on this team. I don't know. Haven't seen it yet. Maybe that is Aaron Anderson. Blakey's 5'7". I don't care if he was 5'2". Go be great. Kyron Lacey goes off, you win this football game. Kyron had a great game last time on the far left boundary, which, by the way, guys, I would attack the far left boundary. I don't even know if I'm looking at Trey Amos to start the game. Wherever 9 goes, I'm going the opposite direction. I am going to absolutely abuse the opposite side of Trey Amos. I feel good. I feel good, man. I feel good about this one. So those are my keys to victory. I will just say, let me before we kind of turn the page. I see that we got some stars. I see Ted Biddle just sent in some stars on Facebook. Thank you, Ted. I appreciate that, man. I want to say this before we kind of turn the page here. I saw we got the super chat in here too. Can you lose? Yeah. Are there a lot of things that worry me in this one? Yes. My anxiety meter is about an 8.5 right now. It's only Thursday. By Saturday at 12 o'clock, it'll probably be up to a 10. It'll probably be up to a 10. I don't know how y'all do it. I really don't. It's up to a 10, man. It's up to a 10 on Saturday mornings on weeks like this. But right now, I'm about an 8.5. I feel good, but I'm cautious. I'm very cautious. I just don't know if I can see them coming to your place at night and beating you. I know that college football has been weird this year. I know it's been very weird. Sometimes in some places and in some things, college football, like it doesn't, like Saturday night in Death Valley, that is not one of those places that does. Now, have you lost here tonight? Yeah. Brian Kelly's 12-0 in night games. I mean, guys, in night games, think about this. In night games in Tiger Stadium, you're 108-15 since 2000. Since Saban got here. You're 108-15th in night games in Tiger Stadium. So when they say, yeah, they don't lose there at night. Well, it's not like West Virginia where they don't have the record to back it up. At this place, they do have the record and they do back it up. Have there been losses in there? Yeah, there have been losses in there. I think about Tennessee. I think about Alabama. How many times did Alabama come in here and win at night? What, 3, 4? Let's go get them, man.